pandemic, something amazing happened. 40.52% of Americans gained weight.
A little bit of a weight problem.
Yeah, that's the highest percentage in the world. Okay, maybe that's not amazing. This is amazing. The country reporting the highest percentage of people who lost weight during the lockdown was the United Kingdom. Yeah, 40.54% of people in the UK not only avoided gaining the infamous quarantine 15, they turned it into the quarantine negative 15. They lost weight. Why? What happened in the UK that inspired so many people to stop watching Tiger King, put down the popcorn, and get healthy? Well, I have a theory. A theory that may just reveal the secret to embracing change and making progress on your personal, professional, and business goals. Welcome to the Loyalty Loop. This is Tim Ludford. He lives in London, and before the pandemic, it wasn't uncommon for him to order curry for two and eat the whole meal himself. Tim was overweight, clinically obese. Instead of cooking meals for himself, he'd sometimes eat a full meal before meeting his mates at the pub where he'd eat some more. You see, Tim had no time to work out or make healthy meals at home. Then the pandemic hit. He got furloughed, and suddenly he found himself stuck at home. Like so many of us, the pubs closed and Tim started cooking for himself. And this is the first cornerstone in my theory. Sudden change happens when your resources suddenly free up. That's right. You have time or money or the resources to do something different. But this doesn't explain why more people in the UK lost weight during the pandemic. We all found ourselves at home with a change in resources. And that leads me to the second cornerstone in the triangle of transformation. Yes, in the UK, the lockdowns were strict and enforcement was tight. By late February of last year, the government required the entire country to stay inside with very few exceptions. One of those exceptions was 1 hour of exercise outdoors. So, if you wanted to go outside, one of the only reasons you were allowed to go outside was to get fit. And Tim did just that. He embraced the constraints. And he started walking, first a mile, then 3 miles, then 6 miles. Tim embraced the constraints. Adding a constraint is like you can only go out and exercise once a day is the second cornerstone in the triangle of transformation. But again, this alone does not explain why Americans like me gained weight and so many Britons did the opposite. You see, finding the resources and adding a constraint aren't enough. And it's this that leads me to the third cornerstone in my theory. In April of last year, this happened.
The British Prime Minister Boris Johnson has been admitted to intensive care with those persistent symptoms of coronavirus. He
recovered, and within weeks of his discharge from the ICU, he started publicly addressing something we didn't hear as much about in the US. You see, having obesity may triple the risk of hospitalization due to COVID-19 infection, and Boris Johnson was convinced that he got it hard because of his weight. At 5'9", Boris weighed about 245 pounds when he got COVID. By July, Boris Johnson launched a campaign to cut the country's obesity rate as part of their pandemic response. Now, remember the scales of risk from last week's episode? Suddenly, for millions of concerned citizens, the scales of risk tipped. Suddenly, the idea of business as usual seemed like the highest risk option. The threat of getting COVID and having a severe case because of their weight changed their risk tolerance instantly. And Tim was no different. Like most of us, Tim was scared of getting COVID, and when he heard that obesity was a severity factor, he got motivated. By October of 2020, Tim had lost about 75 pounds, and he's not alone. In fact, the only age group in the UK to become more active during the pandemic than beforehand is the over 65s.
Beautiful. March your place.
So here's my theory. If you want to make a change, pursue a goal, do something different, if you want to make progress on your personal, professional, and business goals, you need to embrace all three legs in the triangle of transformation. Yes, you need to free up those resources. And 2, you need to add and embrace at least one massive constraint. And 3, you need to tip the scales of risk. That's right, risk. If you want to make the business as usual feel like the highest risk option. Yeah, we've got to transform your perception of the risk involved. And that third cornerstone in the triangle of transformation is the linchpin in my theory of why the UK had more people lose weight during the pandemic than anywhere else in the world. What do you think? What have I missed? Don't miss next week's episode of The Loyalty Loop, where we're going to revisit one of my previous stories and explain how one company increased their email subscriptions when they stopped asking for an email address. You're going to want to hear what they did. So subscribe now at loyaltyloopers.com and use the secret code EmailParadox for exclusive access. In the meantime, I'm going to finish my workout and tries to lose this quarantine 15. I'll see you next week in my Loyalty Loop. All right, here we go. What do you think? Push-ups? Let's try it. Oh, yeah.
Great. Come on. You're burning butter. Keep it up. Take it all the way up. That's it. One more time. Great for that waist. Yes. Trim and tune. Good. And shake it out. Great. Take a deep breath. Inhale. Exhale. That's it.
I got popcorn in my
Good.
throat.
Breathe out. Get ready for our next